Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're tackling one of the most profound and frankly painful paradoxes of human existence. We are drawing from the fascinating source text, Why War Still Exists in 2026. Just picture this for a second. It's 2026. We've got artificial intelligence answering impossibly complex questions in milliseconds. We have satellite constellations completely blanketing the globe, instant communication, and we're literally pushing the boundaries of space exploration. Humanity is pulling off the impossible every single day. And yet, despite all of these staggering technological and intellectual leaps, we still haven't figured out how to stop killing each other. War remains a brutal, persistent reality.
So we have to ask the obvious question. Why does war still exist? Now, we all know exactly what war does to the human soul. We have these expansive museums, haunting survivor testimonies, and endless graveyards that are just constant, visceral reminders of the devastating cost. So it's pretty clear that this continued conflict isn't just a failure of knowledge. We absolutely know better. That means there's something much deeper going on here, a flaw that's fundamentally wired into the very way we live and organize ourselves.
The visionary Buckminster Fuller, the brilliant mind behind the futuristic geodesic dome, actually realized that our societal wiring was totally stuck in the past. He argued that war is actually a massive design failure. It's a systems failure. Basically, our civilization is literally built on design assumptions that are completely obsolete. Our institutions are actively rewarding fear, scarcity, and competition. Think about it like this. If a house keeps burning down, you don't just keep blaming the fire. Eventually, you have to stop and ask who designed the faulty wiring in the walls. War happens because we've engineered a world where, tragically, violence still appears to be a practical solution.
To figure out how to fix this wiring, we're going to consult an imaginary panel of history's greatest thinkers. In this explainer, we will cover 1. The human design failure. 2. Weaponizing the sacred. 3. The technology paradox. 4. Heart versus systems. And finally, obsoleting the enemy.
Starting with Part 1, the human design failure. For over 2 millennia, the ancient strategist Sun Tzu has been heavily misunderstood. War is so often viewed as this ultimate sign of strength, but Sun Tzu actually saw it as a severe miscalculation. He recognized that nations don't just suddenly choose war out of nowhere because they're angry. They choose it when leaders are terrified of appearing weak. We see this constantly in modern global politics, right? Leaders posturing, getting totally trapped in an escalating game of chicken, mostly because backing down feels like political suicide. They misjudge the cost, they misjudge the enemy, and they misjudge their own strength. True strategic excellence isn't about winning the fight at all. It's about designing a situation where the battle is entirely unnecessary to begin with.
When you weave these brilliant perspectives together, you get a pretty terrifying picture of the machinery of war. It all starts with Sun Tzu's observation, leaders misjudging costs out of pure pride. Now that pride requires a compliant system to back it up, which brings us to Albert Einstein's big warning about organized obedience. Massive institutions and military complexes effectively silence individual moral reflection. People stop asking if something is actually right, and they just follow orders. This, of course, leads to profound suffering. And, as Nelson Mandela points out, generations then inherit all that trauma and humiliation. The conflict just lives on, deeply embedded in the culture. Finally, Elon Musk highlights the ultimate trap, which is our current incentive structures. Our global systems are optimized to capitalize on this inherited trauma to drive market share and military advantage, rather than actually reducing human conflict. We've essentially built this massive, self-sustaining machine around humanity's absolute worst tendencies.
Moving to Part 2, weaponizing the sacred.
We have to take a hard look at what happens when the most beautiful parts of human culture, like our faith and spirituality, get corrupted into tools for tribal hatred. There's a massive fundamental difference between true faith and religious identity, which is a concept inspired by Martin Luther King Jr. True faith creates moral courage. It acts as an internal compass that's constantly asking, am I being loving? Am I being just? But religious identity or tribal groupthink operates very differently, especially right now in our digital echo chambers. When identity is weaponized, it creates moral permission. People completely stop asking, is this right? And they only ask, is this what my side believes? Who belongs to our group and who can we condemn? The sacred is captured, but merely to demand obedience and protect human power.
This corruption is addressed powerfully in our source text by figures like Jesus and Prophet Muhammad. The core message is this: when human beings use God's name to justify hatred, they're not serving God, they're serving fear. Capturing religion just to bless violence or to maintain political control is ultimately a submission to the human ego. It's literally using the language of the divine as a shield to hide our own ambition and to completely avoid any real moral accountability.
But you really can't separate that spiritual purity from practical justice. Nelson Mandela intimately understood that you can't just mandate peace from the top down. You noted that peace requires more than just telling people to stop fighting. You actually have to give them a path where dignity is not lost. To ground this historically, just think about the end of World War I. The Treaty of Versailles severely punished and humiliated Germany. It completely stripped the nation of its dignity. And that deep humiliation directly fueled the rise of fascism and restarted the entire machinery of war for World War II. It proves Mandela's point perfectly. If a defeated enemy has absolutely no dignity left, lasting peace is just an illusion.
Which brings us to Part 3, the technology paradox.
We obviously have brilliant modern tools at our disposal today. But the question is, will they liberate us from war, or are they just going to accelerate that glitch in our design? The mathematician Alan Turing was asking this exact pivotal question way back in the 1950s at the very dawn of computing. He asked, when we hand decisions over to machines, can the system actually explain its reasoning in a way humans can contest? Historically, war has contained natural delays, confusion, physical distance, human hesitation, moral doubt. If we suddenly replace those vital human pauses with automated AI calculations, like autonomous drone swarms, for instance, we risk totally removing the very hesitation that sometimes prevents total catastrophe.
But technology isn't just a threat. It is an incredibly powerful tool if we fundamentally redesign the incentives. Elon Musk argues that infrastructure changes can actually make war less necessary. Just think about energy abundance. If we use tech to create unlimited clean energy, we entirely remove the historical premise of fighting over scarce resources like oil and land. Transparent information networks can expose the lies that leaders use to march their citizens in a battle. AI could even act as a neutral early warning system to detect conflict escalation way before politicians make catastrophic moves. And even massive undertakings like space exploration can shift our collective identity away from nation first into a shared humanity first mission.
However, we really must heed the intense warnings of thinkers like J. Robert Oppenheimer and Yuval Noah Harari. Oppenheimer realized that knowledge without moral governance becomes completely unbearable. That was a lesson learned the hard way in the shadow of the atomic bomb. Today, Harari warns us that our modern battlefield isn't just physical land anymore. It's probably the device you're holding right now. The new battlefield is information, it's attention, and it's the stories we tell ourselves. AI algorithms manufacturing outrage and shaping tribal narratives on social media is the modern trap. If our civilization just keeps worshiping technological force without developing the moral maturity to govern it, we are basically walking blindly right into a disaster.
Next up, Part 4, Heart versus Systems. This really brings us to the ultimate chicken or egg debate. If we genuinely want to end war, do we fix the global systems first, or do we have to start with the human heart? Mahatma Gandhi's perspective introduces this profound idea that the heart actually has to be the first battlefield. He believed true religion makes a person smaller before truth. It actively disciplines the ego, our desires, and our anger. False religion, on the other hand, makes a person larger before others, basically allowing them to avoid self-criticism entirely. Gandhi firmly believed that without inner truth and discipline, any perfect, utopian outer system we try to invent is eventually going to be corrupted by the unchecked human ego.
But inner change inside a vacuum just isn't enough. As Jesus highlighted, a peaceful heart must become peaceful action. There is a really deep friction here. Think about it. If your hurt changes, but the systems around you remain deeply unjust, innocent people are still going to suffer. True inner peace has to manifest outwardly as justice. It has to look like fighting for the oppressed and actively caring for those who are hurting.
Nelson Mandela's lived experience perfectly captures this grueling balance. He entered prison incredibly angry, but he realized that letting that anger rule him would mean he remained a prisoner forever, even after he walked outside the physical walls. Choosing to abandon that anger after 27 years in a cell is just an astonishing feat of human willpower. Yet, he also knew you can't just ask an oppressed people to simply forgive while systemic injustice continues uninterrupted. Inner healing and the fierce pursuit of outer, systemic justice absolutely have to walk hand in hand.
Finally, Part 5, obsoleting the enemy.
So, the path to peace requires a simultaneous, dual approach. You can think of it like two massive gears that have to turn at the exact same time. On one hand, we absolutely must cultivate inner human maturity, a real dedication to truth and nonviolence right within the human heart. But on the other hand, we have to completely redesign our systems. We have to change the outer architecture, our global infrastructure, our economics, and our institutions. We're tasked with transforming human consciousness while, at the exact same time, actively engineering a physical world where cooperation is structurally and economically superior to conflict.
Now, just imagine the visionary hope of what that redesigned reality actually looks like. It is a world where the very concept of an enemy simply loses its function. Leaders can no longer gain cheap popularity by inventing foreign threats to distract their citizens. Global economies are finally decoupled from war production, so they no longer rely on military-industrial growth. Instead, we are united by shared civilization-level missions, like colonizing space or mastering clean energy, things that rally us together as a species. It's this incredibly inspiring reality where ecology, objective truth, and fundamental human dignity are protected by the very design of the system itself.
The old question throughout history was always, how do we defeat our enemies? But Buckminster Fuller leaves us with a far more profound challenge. How do we build a world where enemies are no longer needed? It is a huge challenge to rethink our deeply flawed systems, our rapidly advancing technology, our personal faith, and the quiet condition of our own hearts. It asks every single one of us to reconsider our role in redesigning reality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. I really hope it leaves you with a lot to think about.